Being in the top 3 for highest damage builds of the season, Stinger is incredibly powerful and yet one of the most, if not the most underrated skill in the game. You should definitely give it a try. It is the best feeling skill I have played for Spiritborn, and I'm really excited to know what people think about it. Welcome to Goblin-Inc. Before we get into the build, the Crimson Market is giving away another computer. You can join the raffle for free on the first month. It's a Spiritborn inspired computer. The link is going to be down below in the description of the video. Feel free to join if you like to do so. Alright, let's get into the build. I have tried every skill for Spiritborn with some surprising findings. Crushing Hands was my favorite so far. It has large AoE, very good clear speed, good push, great single target damage. And of course, Quill Volley was the highest pushing build, so 150 makes it a little bit easier with Quill Volley. The issue is that you really slow down on any content that isn't pushing. Really clunky to play. You cannot hit on your sides or behind yourself, really slow at farming any content in the game. Rake, in a similar way, is like the worst combination of everything. Lacks single target damage, lacks good clear behind you and on the sides, very slow for speed farming. I hated Rake. Crushing Hand was the best performing build in my experience for overall content. And I think people really like the Orange Hulk build. But actually, Stinger feels even better. There is something to do with its animation that makes it feel incredible. So we're gonna go over my Stinger build, and I will have two versions of the build in my planner. One easy to set up without the uber uniques, and one with what I consider the best setup, which now we'll go run over. I have tested this build in various versions, so you guys know where we are at, with Noxious Resonance, without it, and I've tried the versions based more on poison damage, with also swarms, and in the end the build without the swarms, with just flat out damage and big AoE, was the one that felt the best for me. So as you can see, let's talk about Stinger. Stinger applies 50% of his base damage as poison over 6 seconds to all enemies on hit. This is not very useful for the build. The second passive, Stinger does 40% increased damage if it only hits a single enemy. It's really good for bossing, instead of echoing to surrounding poison enemies. Stinger now draws from each enemy's hit in the primary area, gaining up for an additional 10% of its base damage, blah blah blah. It's a 50% damage multiplier anyway, it's pretty good. So it says, strike a small area, which is actually huge as you can see, dealing damage to enemies within as well on all surrounding poison enemies. 189% multiplier, it's really high as you can see, higher than Crushing Hands, even though yeah, I do have more ranks on it. But as you can see, we have 168 and we have 88% down here, and creating 2 shockwaves, HDL 88%. Instead of my Stinger, it's doing 161. So as you can see, it's very similar. Now the catch to this is that Stinger is actually slightly better because it works better with Rod of Kapaleka. When you hit with Rod of Kapaleka, the double chance for skills to hit twice now gives you double damage because you only have one instance of the skill. Instead, when you play with Crushing Hands, you go from 2 hits to 3 hits. So it's 88%, as you can see, times 3, so it's like 240 something, and Stinger is 168, goes to like 30-20, right? Because double. So as you can see, when you factor in the chance to hit twice, now it's better than Crushing Hands by actually quite a big margin. So for this reason, I think Stinger not only feels better to click, but also has just higher base damage. There's like not much to say about that other than it's just flat out better. I am running classic orange setup with Vanish Law Talisman. We have 3 barrier gems for me. It is what I need to get my 123% barrier bonus. I have a little bit less, and people always ask me, is it okay if I do not hit the perfect barrier bonus? Yeah, it is. You lose a little bit of damage, but you have to kill yourself to hit it. Anything I think above 120 something will be fine. I am running an extra dexterity gem here. Dexterity, maximum life, maximum resource, 1 resilient, and 1 resolve. I will have a version of the build without Ubers and with easier setup. So that version of the build would be a little bit different with a little bit more resource generation. Because as you can see, resource generation on the Shroud of Fall staff is important to activate Kapaleka. Otherwise, you wouldn't be able to recover all your resources in one hit. So, slight difference. If you do not have Shroud of Fall staff on the build, you will have to play with different boots, and that way will compensate. You're gonna play with Yen's Blessing. It's gonna be a budget version of the build. You will hit resistance cells and armor caps more easily. So that's my go-to way to make those builds approachable for who does not have Ubers yet. We're running with Moonrise Gauntlets. As you can see, I've tested Mystic Circles. I've added Mystic Circle potency on the rings and the gloves. Mystic Circles wasn't great for the build. I felt them more clunky to play. And takes away from the speediness and just the good feel of the build. And I found it to just generally slow down my speed at leveling my Paragon, so they went out. I have Moonrise. It gets you to attack speed cap with attack speed GAs on... you need 3 attack speed masterworks between your amulet and ring to get to 99%, and that's fine. I have 1 vortex size on my pants, which is always good. And I'm playing the same setup that I was playing on my Crushing Hands with Soar casting Vortex. By far, it is the best way to vulnerable the enemies immediately, thanks to Soar vulnerable enemies. Having vulnerable on the gloves was an issue because 1, you're not guaranteed to vulnerable your enemies. And second, when you're hitting the enemies and they're not vulnerable yet, even if they get vulnerable applied to them on the first hit, you're still not receiving the bonus damage from vulnerable, meaning that you lose all your damage from the vulnerable because you're one-shotting the enemies. So you really want the first hit to already be vulnerable. The only way to do that is with Soar. So that's what we did. Soar also increases your clear speed. It is, in my opinion, making the build feel much better. Even on controller, I really like it because you get a feeling on when to use it and using it in a way that increases your speed, right? So when you know enemies are close by, you can soar and jump directly on them. So again, I have my ferocity. This can be on anyone. I have my ferocity stacks here. It's important to be 5. If you do not have 5 ferocity stacks here, you're gonna have to run double jugger on your spirit hole. Otherwise, it's fine. You're gonna lose a little bit of damage. I'm gonna be using maximum life core skill. Those are the 2 best stats on the gloves. You want to, if you can, masterwork max life, and resource cost reduction is better than dexterity. But also attack speed would be decent. If you have attack speed here, you wouldn't have to masterwork your attack speed. But resource cost reduction, it's another damage multiplier, so that would be the best choice overall. I have basic skill ranks, as this is a basic skill. Armor is not mandatory to have, but having armor on your pants allows you to basically, or on your boots, one of those 2, allows you to pretty much cap armor. And even though you're not perfectly armor capped, you will not die. This build is incredibly tanky. Max life on every item, and of course we run bear generation movement speed here on the boots. The most important thing here is the GA on chance for close kills to hit twice, and getting a 3% Rod of Kapaleka. The maximum resources you do not need to have. For the ring, well, the Banisher Talisman, as you know, most important thing is going to be max life and the aspect. For the ring, attack speed, max life are the 2 most important stats, and resource cost reduction comes after that. We are running, of course, Redirected Force here, and our good ring of the Midnight Sun. Honestly, this can also not be ancestral if it doesn't really need anything here. Dexterity is the best GA. You would just want a 47/50% Midnight Sun. For Spirit Hole, we talked about it. If your attack speed is not capped, you might want to run Jugger as your secondary Spirit Hole, and you lose a little bit of damage, but you would lose more if you don't have the attack speed. For the skill tree, you want to have max points in Balanced Exertion and on Stinger. We are not running the Vulnerable. We are running Rampant Stinger because I like the extra damage for this. I have Vortex Soar combo, both of them, and we're casting Vortex through or Aspect for Soar. I'm running Apex and Unrestrained Power. It is actually possible to run with Zwift. So So if you want to run the build with less defense, which actually I've not found myself to feel any difference, might be dependent on how well geared you are. Swift is really nice as it allows your sword to pretty much be on 0 cooldown. I have Perseverance. Really, those points here are the ones that you can take out for the build and change them to your liking. Cool points in Armored Hide is important to recover your cooldowns faster. And a lot of those points, Patient Guard, which will be important, are taken care of by the Uber Unique on your chest. The version without Uber Unique will have a slightly different talent tree. We take Scourge for healing. Full points in Resilient and no points in Dominant, as it's not a Gorilla skill. I actually take 1 point in Ravenous and 1 in Oppressive, as there are different multipliers. So it's always nice to have different multipliers that scale multiplicatively. And as you know, Compound Interest is the strongest force in the universe. We run both Potent and Furnace. Our skills are Jagger. Full points in Supremacy, Spiritual Attunement, and Resolution. The Hunter, and we run, of course, Prodigy's Temple. For the Paragon, some interesting choices here. So we run a pretty chill Colossal, just 25 points. So we run a chill Spirit with a little bit of extra points. But Spirit is also your probably best glyph in terms of draw damage per point spent, 22 per 5 points. We are running, of course, Viscous Shield, and I am getting more barrier generation, which is, for me, important, but for you, you might not need it. It depends how well rolled your barrier generations are going to be on your gear. Bane, 47 intelligence, strength, is enough to grant you the 156% poison damage you need to cap your Convergence. So you have enough poison damage for Convergence to work. Bane is not the best glyph for you. You don't really benefit a lot from the poisoning damage effects of a 50% blah blah blah. But you do not really have a choice, as this is the only poison damage worth running for the build. I'm running Headhunter, which is a very good, and people have a lot of resistance on this. It's an incredibly powerful glyph, and also allows you to get flat stats, which is strong because dexterity is damage, but also because you can get enough stats on this to activate all your rare nodes very easily. So it's a very powerful glyph. The last board we have Hubris, which has the highest bonus to all magic nodes within range, and you can also take points in strength and on intelligence, which, as you probably know already, intelligence has resource generation cooked in it, and having enough resource generation is important because it's needed, to reach the 100% for running the Ring of the Midnight Sun. If you find yourself not recovering enough resources with your Ring of the Midnight Sun, in the description, in the builder, if you go in FAQ of the build planner, you will have a calculator for your resource generation, and that way you can check how much you're missing. Adding intelligence is a way to get more resource generation, so you can check that. Overall, the Paragon is not going to be too needed. I think above 230 Paragon points, the build is pretty much finished, and adding more additive damage really is not going to yield any more bonuses, because we have so much max life in combat. Max life gives us additive overpower damage, even though it's not visible, that any additive damage added on your Paragon is going to be virtually a 0 damage increase. But you can always stick, more dexterity points on things like Spirit. The best one, honestly, are going to be points in Headhunter. And yeah, you can put more points on Bane if you want. Colossal is going to be completely worthless. We are running it mostly because it has a great multiplier, 2% damage for each stock of Resolve we're running, and we have Resolve stocks on here. Hope you guys enjoyed the video, and I wish you all a good